So my father passed away in October, but before I even knew my father passed, I had a dream, and in my dream my father was in a room with an old TV on an old TV stand. There was static on the TV, but there was a picture of my dad that was static. It makes sense on the TV screen. When I saw my dad, there was a couch that looked like one of those Victorian couches that was pushed along the wall. However, my father wanted to show me these creatures that he said were coming. My father opened the wall and showed me these creatures, about 6 of them, that were all sitting in formation of a triangle. The moment I peeked my head in through the wall, they all turned to me at the same time. They kind of looked like an owl, but not an owl, and their eyes was that of outer space and constellations. I could see that the creature's eyes were moving, as if it watches the universe. As I stared at these beings, it showed me the birth of it from an egg, which I felt the sense that this birth took place millions of years ago before an egg. After it showed me that scene, I turned around and told my dad, "Dad, what is it?" To which my dad responded with, "They're angel aliens, son, and they are coming." I turned back into the wall to see that creatures who were facing in the other direction were a bright light was shining through, and they all turned back to face me. Then I woke up with a feeling that I needed to call everyone that I've ever met in my life and make sure that they were doing okay in life, even people I hadn't seen in a year. It was a dreadful feeling. After 30 minutes of lying on my bed, my aunt called me on my dad's phone to say that the doctors were saying he only had about 30 more minutes until he passed away. I still can't figure out what or who, creatures or beings, they were. In the summer of 2007, around 2 hours after my grandfather passed away, me and my sister had a horrific car accident. A little past midnight, we were on our way towards my grandpa's house. I was behind the wheel and driving moderately fast. When I was supposed to make a U-turn, the brakes failed and we hit the guardrail. The front of the car was demolished, and both of us were badly injured. I believe I lost consciousness for a few seconds, and when I came back, I looked at her and saw blood all over her face, and realized that she, too, had lost her consciousness. She was slowly coming to when I squeezed myself out of the window and moved to her side to get her out of the car. Her door was stuck just like mine, so I couldn't get her way out. People started to gather around the 911 call. The firefighters came and removed the door and finally brought her out of the car. When the ambulance was taking us to a hospital, I was having the biggest deja vu of my entire life. I knew which hospital we were going, even though nobody told me. I knew how the halls of the hospital looked like before even arrived there. Even knew the name of the doctor of the hospital, even though nobody said it. I even knew the name of the doctor who was supposed to give me stitches. Someone that I've never met before. It's weird, because as soon as me and my sister were alone and could talk to each other, she told me about how she feels like she's been there before and was feeling deja vu the whole time. It might seem normal for people who just took a hit to their head to experience these kinds of things. Read too much into some things that aren't actually there, but it's a lot more weird than it looks at first glance. I believe that both of us died on that timeline, but for some reason our consciousness switched on into parallel versions of ourselves in another universe. And the feeling of deja vu was because of our consciousness settling into the bodies of our alternate selves, with the original consciousnesses still present, which caused the feeling of experiencing everything twice. Now here's something truly bizarre. There was a song called Zalem by Mohsen Chavashi, which our mom loved and listened to almost every day. Even when my mom didn't play it, my older brother would. It was kind of a signature song in our house. So a few months after the crash, I was having a conversation with one of my co-eds about music. She was, without a doubt, the #1 fan of Mohsen Chavashi, to the point that we used to call her Chavoshist. She was talking about her favorite Chavoshi song. When I said, "Yeah, he's a good singer. My mom loves Zalem. She'll play it on repeat for hours until you become sick of hearing it," she frowned and asked me about the song that I just mentioned. She said that he doesn't have a song named Zalem. I thought maybe I got the name wrong, so I started to sing it. She shook her head and said it wasn't Kavoshi's song. She named Vorka as a singer. I could swear that the song I heard was Kavoshi's. His voice is unmistakable. There's no way I'd be wrong about that. So I googled it, and no matter how much I looked, I could only find the song Zalem by Vorka. I thought maybe it's the same song, and I was wrong all along, so I downloaded and listened to it. But the song by Vorka can't be more different from what I remember. Sure, it has the same lyrics, but the melody and genre of it, completely different. So I asked my mom about it, and guess what? She hasn't heard of it, and neither does my brother, who gave us that song in the first place. They have no recollection of that song, whether it's Shavoshi's or Faroki's, but on the other hand, my sister remembers it, and she says it was Savoshi's song, and she knows the lyrics just like me. Somehow she and I have memories about a song which doesn't even exist in this world. I don't know why or even how it's possible, but I sincerely believe we moved through the dimensions when we were both unconscious after the crash. I don't believe in souls, so I can't say that we died and our souls moved on into our alternate selves. But I've heard stories that happen to other people which are similar to our experience. I just think it has something to do with my grandpa's death. Maybe we were supposed to die that night, but his death caused an event which led us moving on into another universe where we didn't die. Not going to do a lengthy backstory, except I was raised outdoors, hiking, saltwater, fly fishing, hunting, and I am an Eagle Scout. This happened 20 years ago in the Panhandle of Florida. I had been working 12-hour night shifts for almost a year. Wasn't drunk or anything else. I took my 67 Firebird convertible to an old car wash around 1:30 a.m. No other cars were there, and it was located on a main road. But being a medium-sized city, there wasn't much traffic at that time. I pulled the car into the vacuum machines, with the front facing the road and the rear towards the open-ended car washing bays. Took out the floor mats, started the loud machine, and started cleaning. Almost 3/4 of the way through it, I was bent over half in and half out of the car. I got the overwhelming feeling I was being watched. Leaned out of the car and stood up. I was not expecting what I saw. It's hard to describe, but I will do my best. Beside me, in one of the car wash bays, 3 of them connect together with cinder block walls between them. Typical style setup. Hose on the ground, no front or rear so you can drive through, and 20-foot ceilings. Top of the ceiling had a large light that illuminates the stalls and projects about 10 feet on either end of the stalls. I had been using this car wash my whole life, until I moved from the area. there was something there. Not just standing there. I wouldn't describe it as floating, but it wasn't touching the ground. Seemed the shape was about 7 feet tall, and bottom was about 2 feet off the ground. This will sound insane, but here it goes. It was like looking at someone's shadow. Could make out a head area, shoulders, where the arms would be, and leg area, proportion like a tall human would be. But it was all shadow, no gaps where the arms or legs were. A standing shadow, I guess I would call it. The main body shape was black with a little TV-like fuzz effect throughout it on older TVs. Around its full outline, I can only describe as static electricity. Not shooting out everywhere, away from it, but arching around it. Didn't believe it for a second. I noticed that everything else looked normal, so I wasn't having a heart attack or seizure. I could see the fencing and dumpsters back behind it. It was literally almost in the middle of the washing stall, but more to the front. It was around 20 yards away from me. I got no bad feelings from it. Didn't feel sick, just like it was there observing me. The loud vacuum was still running, and I couldn't hear anything coming from it, so I don't know if it made any noise. I acknowledged it in my mind. I thought, okay, I see you, I will get my things and leave. It never approached or moved, it was just there. I went around the car and grabbed my floor mat in the passenger side. Have no clue why. I should have just left. Rounded the front of my car with it. Still, it was just there. Sat down and started the car. Looked back and it was gone. I drove off immediately. I don't expect anyone to understand, just knew it wasn't there to harm me. I've had a few weird happenings in the woods, nothing crazy. I really just felt like it was a watcher, was there just to observe. I have searched for other encounters with descriptions like this, but have found none. Could it have been a watcher or a portal being? Thanks for listening. Today, my wife and I were out of the house most of the day. When we got home, our dog wasn't around his usual spot, the couch, and didn't run up to us. This scares us a bit because he's old and slowing down. My wife went into the basement to look for him, and he was laying in a balled up towel in the dark, which is something he has never done before. He hasn't been acting sick, and once we went down to get him, he's been fine. After putting some groceries down, I went to take the trash out, which requires walking through our 2-car garage, and then through our attached single-car garage I use as a gym. I turned all the lights on so I don't trip, as I always do, and took the trash out of the side door in the small garage. When I turned around to come back, I saw that I thought was my wife walking past a single window looking into the little garage. Same shirt, same size, appeared to be her, but she was kind of hunched and looking down, walking towards the closed garage door. I didn't think anything of it and opened the door and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Before realizing she wasn't there, I checked the entire garage and nobody was there. There was no way to get out without going through the door I came in, the closed garage door, or going into the house. When I got inside, my wife was in the opposite side of the house and had not gone outside. We were both spooked a bit, even though we were honestly not paranormal believers. We just find it interesting, like mythology or something. We have been in this house for about 2 years and haven't noticed anything strange before. This story is an experience I had as a 7 or 8-year-old child. I know children aren't viewed as the most reliable source of genuine paranormal experiences, but my twin brother experienced this event with me. At least 33 years old, we still wonder often, what the hell was that all about? Our mother just chalked it up to us having a weird twin dream, or using our imaginations. We stand by the fact that we are not imagining this, and we were 100% awake. It was a night of Christmas Eve. I remember this because after the event, we were too frightened to sleep in our room, and instead slept on the floor in the living room near the Christmas tree. I heard my mom rustling plastic bags very early in the morning as she filled out stockings. And this was the night I realized Santa wasn't real. We had been put to bed in our bunk beds. I was on top bunk and my brother had the bottom. Like typical children, we were too excited about Christmas to sleep and lay awake talking, hearing yells to quiet down from our mom in the other room. I don't know how late it was, as we had no clock in the room, but it had been dark outside for quite some time, and the adults in the house were all trying to sleep. I guess somewhere between 10 p.m. and midnight, to keep quiet, I played a game, personally called Blanket Lightning, which is where I would rub the blanket together, then shake it with my head under the covers to watch the lightning, which was actually just static electricity. But it looked pretty cool in the dark. I did this a few times, and my brother was also playing the odd static game with his blankets. Suddenly, I realized it was very quiet in the bedroom, almost as if I was deaf, but there was a strange ambient noise, maybe like you'd hear in a quiet server room. A noise of quiet electronics humming is the only way I can describe it. I didn't hear my brother anymore either. I stopped playing with my blanket and peeked my head out into the room. This is a part where it gets really hard and slightly difficult to explain, so bear with me, please. Keep in mind, I was a 7-year-old child in the 90s, during the height of the Nickelodeon slime era. I described this as slime. As an adult looking back, it was more like light that had the appearance of a viscous liquid. It was a bright neon yellow-green and looked like the reflections of light you see on the walls in swimming pools. But it was at the top of the wall where it met the ceiling, and dripping with the physics of a slime. Down from the top of the wall, it ran down towards the floor. All 4 walls glowed with this weird light slime. The only window in our room was very bright with light, almost as if a semi-truck was right outside shining its high beams into the window. Except it was on the 2nd floor. I started to get scared and called out my brother's name. I heard him squeal, "What is that?" as the slime started to rise from the floor. We quickly realized it was going to engulf the bottom bunk as we watched it devour our toys on the floor and fill the back of our Tonka dump truck. Terrified, my brother scrambled onto the top bunk. We looked down and watched the slime rise over his bed. Not knowing what to do, we both started screaming loudly. My mom's boyfriend threw the door open and quickly turned the light on. In that instant, everything disappeared. Everything was gone and back to normal. Naturally, we were asked, "What are you screaming about?" We couldn't even describe what had happened, and both started talking about slime filling the room, and we slightly sounded crazy. We were telling the story through tears, and we were told go back to bed. We went hysterical when he tried to turn the light off. We were allowed to sleep in the living room that night on the floor. My brother and I talked about it occasionally as adults, and we both remember in the same way. We asked my mom recently if she remembers the day, and she said she did and thought we were imagining the whole thing. I can't say that I was, but I am hoping to share our story to see if maybe someone else has a similar experience. This did not feel spiritual. I don't believe it was a ghost or demon or anything of that sort. It almost felt extraterrestrial, like maybe we were in the process of being abducted, but it was interrupted by my mom's boyfriend. I remember being very scared of the slime, thinking that if it touched us, something bad would happen, which is why I never attempted to touch the substance. Even now as an adult, when a large truck's headlights come towards the window in my house, and it lights the room through the blinds, I remember that day and look at my walls waiting. But it has never happened again.